Okay, so we're back onto this raw fox skin. Now this skin has been tanned for 3 days or 72 hours, and now I'm just going to make a few alterations to the fox skin before we go to the final step, which will be pegging it out and drying the skin. So I'm just going to turn it over. Now you'll notice that I have in fact sewn up the fox's face. I said I wasn't going to do it, but through the magic of television and about 200 stitches I have in fact stitched it up, and yeah, it almost resembles a fox's face now. But anyway, we'll get onto it. The first thing you'll notice is that now the hide itself, the skin side, is of a bluish colour. So all I've done with this skin is taken it out of the tanning bath and put it into a bucket, taken it into the laundry, and I've washed it in running water for best part of half an hour, until all of the greeny blue colour from the tanning solution stops coming out of the skin and the fur. And once it's done that, then basically all I do is I take that rinsed fur, throw it into the washing machine with quite a bit of dishwashing liquid, and wash it on a warm cycle, just to remove any of the remaining grease that may be left behind from the stripping process. And so now with the raw skin that's been tanned, we're just going to stitch up a few holes, give it a quick blow dry, and then peg it out onto the wooden board to dry. So I'm going to do a bit of stitching now, so I'm just going to zoom in and show you exactly how I do the stitching. Okay, so I've zoomed in on one of the areas that I want to stitch up. This is a tear that I made actually while I was stripping all the meat off the fox. And so I'm going to just use a needle and thread. This is just plain cotton, as you can see. When I stitch up, I think the important thing is to find the actual starting point of the tear, which I think is about here. So that's basically the apex of the tear. And I'm just going to start with a stitch just to hold that in place. So I'm going to perforate the needle in through that point, that very apex. I'm just going to pull it through, and I'm just going to make a simple granny knot just to hold that in place, that first stitch. So you want to do a couple of knots. Needs to be strong. Okay. Alright, so we'll cut off the excess. And away we go. So I reckon we've got about an inch or so, about that far that we need to sew up. So we'll get into it. So I'm just going to pierce through one side. It's important to keep the fur out of the way. We just want to deal with the tanned skin at this point. Push through the other side at approximately the same distance. Pull through, and then I'm simply going to pull the needle, push the needle through the loop and pull it nice and tight. And I'm just going to continue in that manner all the way up for, as I said, about 2 or 3 centimeters until we've got that little tear sewn up. And I reckon that's just about my end point there. So what I'll do now is just add a few half hitches by sliding back under the stitches that I've already made, or the last stitch I've made, and just strengthening that with a couple of final hitches. Okay, and that should do it. So there's the stitched up tear there. Okay, so I've located the other tear that I wanted to fix up. This one's in the shoulder region of the fox. I probably could just bypass this tear just by making a simple cut straight across. But you know, as much as possible I like to keep the skins intact. So I'm actually going to take the trouble to stitch this one up. So as I mentioned, it's important to find where the start and end points are for these holes. So the best way to do that is to simply grab hold of the skin and pull it nice and tight. If you get a nice parallel couple of edges, then more than likely that's going to be the area that you want to stitch up. And you can test that. If you pull the other way, you'll see that it just doesn't match up very well. So I can certainly tell that this is the direction in which I want to stitch up. So I've got 2 end points on this one, so I'm just going to choose the easiest one to locate. Yeah, in this kind of tear, it's pretty easy. Doesn't really matter which side you start. So I'll just start on this right hand side, or your left hand side. So if I pull these two together, okay, so I pretty much know that my start point is going to be here. So just as before, I'm going to insert the needle and just make a starting point, a holding point if you like. Just push the needle through, and then I'm going to tie that up nice and tight to make a firm base or firm anchor for the rest of the stitching. So if you're into your fox furs like me, you may want to stitch up these holes. They can be caused by a number of things. Usually it's through the skinning process, but it can also be due to the shooting of the animal. So yeah, you really want to, you know, be prepared to stitch up whatever holes you create, however you make them. Okay, so I've made a nice starting point there. Just going to trim away that excess. Okay, and now we get into it. This should be a fairly straightforward stitching process, as long as I